Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Sequels to the Viz. Today I have a very special guest, Kasia, who is here to talk about her unique Viz. So over to you, Kasia.
Thank you for having me. So my name is Kasia, I'm from Gdynia, Poland, and I'm a senior BI analyst at EcoVadis by day. And by night, I'm a database enthusiast, I would say. Today, I will be talking about my recent Viz called Greatest Albums of All Time.
Sounds good. So maybe we can start off with the design inspiration, how you came about the idea, and is there any resources that kind of influence your design and the color choices and the layouts and stuff?
Mm-hmm. So, inspiration wise, I think for this particular project, I did not start with any database idea that I just wanted to execute. I've actually started off with data. I've came across that ranking by the Rolling Stone magazine of top 500 greatest albums of all time, and it just caught my interest because I've spotted quite a lot of albums that I personally liked myself. Initially, I wanted to analyze the differences between the rankings from their magazine and my own ratings. So I had an idea that I would just go through all the albums one by one and give them my own ranking. But I quickly realized that this would take me months, if not years, to listen to all of them, even though I knew quite a lot of the albums on the list. To give it a proper rating, I would have to start all over again. I ditched the idea, and this is also something that happens in my design process quite frequently. I would just get pumped and inspired very briefly, and then it just somehow naturally dies out. Like something is just not as expected, I guess. So I would just leave that idea and move on to something new. I've left it for a couple of months, and then I've actually revisited the data source again. And I just couldn't let it go because I think it's so versatile. But I actually struggled quite a bit with the choice of the chart. I've tried different options and just nothing seemed to work. And then after a couple of weeks, I think I came back to it with a different approach. So I actually went to ChatGPT and I asked it for suggestions on what could be the best ways of visualize it. And while ChatGPT gave me a lot of different suggestions, nothing was perfect, but it did give me some directions. It gave me an idea of creating the radial chart. So maybe I can share my screen now because I want to show you how it looked originally. So, yeah, I've started off with something like that. And what really bothered me about this was that it looked like radioactive symbol, if you know what I mean. So it just, I kind of hated the way it looked. I've almost ditched the idea again, but I decided to stick with it and just work with what I had. I came up with the idea of introducing translucency to the lines. You can see that in here, lines are having this translucency effect. Obviously, it appears black in here because I wanted it to blend in with the vinyl background. So that's why I picked black. But if I would pick white, then it would appear as the line is kind of translucent, the edges. And this is where I think clicks for me, that it just looks kind of nice. From that point on, I was invested.
So we are really fortunate that you didn't give up on this idea because it resulted in a really nice viz on the vinyl. So when you're looking at this radar chart, did the vinyl image popped in your mind? Like you knew that it's gonna be something that you're gonna overlay with.
It didn't actually. So, as I mentioned, first of all, I saw that radioactivity symbol, which was something that was hard to remove from my mind. But then, yeah, I started thinking, okay, like what can I associate it with that is more music oriented? So, vinyl was a natural choice. Initially, I thought it would be obvious showing something as vinyls. That's why I decided to keep vinyls to fairly minimalistic. There is a vinyl background, but it just doesn't stand out that much, I think. And that was on purpose because I wanted the colors to pop out a bit more than the vinyl itself.
I imagine there's probably a lot of trigonometry that goes behind that.
Yeah, there is some trigonometry to achieve the circular shape of lines. So if we look into the actual sheet in here, there are a couple of different components in here. First of all, I had the circle with different genres and different albums, right? So every single line in here represents a different album, and then every single color represents a different genre. And then each circle represents a different decade. So in order to split that into decades, I also had to incorporate coordinates for different decades within X and Y coordinates that you see in here. So that's why if you look into the X calculation, we have this adjustment in here, the case statement, that is the adjustment for the position of circle on the canvas. That allowed me to basically spread them out across the dashboard. But the rest of the calculations are basic trigonometry. And then I've started with the point spacing here. So the point spacing calculation is responsible for the width of each genre. So if I change it to 5, for example, you will see that all genres now appear a bit more narrow. I wanted them to overlap a bit. Then I had the angle calculations responsible for position of genres around the circle. I also made some adjustment in here so that they were kind of skewed. You can see that they are not symmetrical to horizontal lines. So I wanted to achieve that effect as well. And that's pretty much everything that was used in the calculations of X and Y, apart from that manual adjustment for position on the canvas. So it wasn't really that bad, but it did require me to play around with the numbers quite a bit. So yeah, you can see that the circles are more condensed, and if I just change it to 20 here, it would be fairly massive, right? So I had to kind of control different options in here. And then that fixed divided by 110 almost had the same purpose. I could probably somehow combine 80, 100 and 10 in here, but honestly, I was just playing around with different options, and this is something that worked, so I decided to leave it as it is. It might not be most optimal, but it works, and it just allowed me to plot circles exactly where I wanted them to be. And initially I've added the option of zooming into those circles, but I faced some performance issues after publishing, so unfortunately decided to keep that out of the final viz. Yeah.
This is really interesting. If you were to put a number to it, how many hours did you spend doing trial and errors on all the manual calculations for the trigonometry stuff?
I don't know, maybe 8 hours. I mean, including the graphic design, which is the background, and it's honestly, it's the big part of it. But I do love working with illustrators. So for me, it was a treat. So I think this is actually 50-50 Tableau and Adobe Illustrator. With this particular viz, I think I've spent more time in Illustrator because I wanted to perfect everything.
Yeah, this is very interesting. Just looking at your past visits on Tableau Public, you have a lot of thematic design. You have one on Office where you have the surveillance camera on Dwight. You also have one for the Christmas movies, which I really like the animation for that. And I think the recent one you did was on Oscars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God, the Oscars one. I had to create a couple of hundred of black and white heads of people. That was
I
a
would
real
imagine so.
Yeah, that was a real treat. I remember I suffered so much when I was doing that, but I love the final results. So I guess it was worth it in the end.
It turned out really well. It was really great talking to you, Kasia, on this viz. So thank you for spending time with us today. I learned a lot on your process, and I love how you do thematic designs. And to everyone watching, hope you learned something new, and we'll see everyone next week. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Is there anything that you're currently working on?
Yeah, so at the moment, I do have an idea around sustainability. I'm quite into the topics of sustainability, especially in terms of fast fashion. I've decided that I want to analyze my wardrobe in terms of sustainability, and I know that it's going to be pretty horrific, but I think it's important for me to be more aware of my fashion choices and the impact that they have on environment. So I think, yeah, that's something I want to definitely explore. I don't know what shape or form it will take, but that's probably something I will give a try next. One of my first visits was around garbage in the ocean, and then it opened my eyes to all the issues there. So I always wanted to create more data visits around similar topics.
So what's the biggest offender in your wardrobe? Is it clothes, shoes, bags?
Well, if you would ask my husband, it would be shoes, that's for sure. But maybe not because of the materials used, although it's not great either. But I think the sheer volume of shoes that I have. I'm a die-hard fan of Doc Martens, and I have too many pairs right now. So I think this is like the biggest sin I think probably I have. Although these days it's really hard to be sustainable when it comes to fashion because everything is just such bad quality, and even like the pricier brands, they also create stuff that is just not the same quality as it used to be. So it's really hard to be fully sustainable, I think. Something
Everyone
I have.
has a hidden sin in their life. For me, it's my library of video games. I always buy video games when they're on discount, and then I end up not playing it. So my library is just a list of unplayed games just because I bought them on sale.
Yeah, I feel you.